Well, with a nationwide quarantine underway, and nothing else better to do but just to devote to personal hobbies and even important things around the house, such as cleaning and whatnot, guess it's time to go ahead and show a little bit of my collection. And this time, we're going to focus on the Sega Dreamcast. And as y'all can plainly see, those are all the games I currently have. And there are some that I don't have in my collection, great ones might I add, but still on the lookout for those in particular. So anyway, for right now I'm just going to focus on the ones that I currently own. Anyway, with that being said, and without further ado, first up, a classic jet grind radio. And another classic, Shenmue, often hailed as one of the best games on the system, and it did help set a precedent, I should say, for modern open world games. And this is a game that was really ahead of its time, and looking at it in retrospect, I guess I could see why it wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea, but suffice it to say, this is a game that really deserves a lot of respect, not just on a technical level, but also the fact that it was unlike anything we've ever seen, especially for a console such as the Dreamcast. And you really owe it to yourself to find a copy of this game. There is an HD remaster of this game and the sequel for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, as we all know. But me being a person about nostalgia, I was lucky enough to pick this up, and especially in the condition it's in too. Next up is Time Stalkers, which is a continuation of Landstalker, which is one of my personal favorite Sega Genesis games. And this one, it's not a bad game. If you want to expand your RPG library for the Sega Dreamcast, it's not bad to have in your collection. So anyway, next up is Tomb Raider Chronicles. Evolution, the World of Sacred Device. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. Dynamite Cop. Conflict Zone. Charge and Blast. Ill Bleed, which is a underrated gem in my opinion. Now this is often credited as being one of the few first-person shooters on the console, and it's a very, very unique and very innovative game called Mach X, and this really isn't a first-person shooter, so to speak, even though it is a first-person game. It's really more of a first-person hack and slash, which, as we all know, which I don't think was ever done before. But other than that, this is a very, very, very unique game, and it being done by Atlas, the same company that made the Persona series, Shin Megami Tensei, and dare I say, Catherine. Innovation is perhaps their middle name. Next up is Zombie Revenge. And this one is probably one of the more bizarre entries that I have in my library, Space Channel 5, which some of us are familiar with. And as y'all can see, it comes with a movable hologram, so anyway. Sega Bass Fishing. Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation. Soldier of Fortune. Here is definitely a staple in the library, Phantasy Star Online, which still has a very big cult following even to this day. Now, I haven't played this game online, but have yet to, and as far as I can tell, even though the official servers for this are down, you can still play it unofficially on Landline, which I may end up checking out. Next up is Quake 3 Arena, another online multiplayer game. Choo Choo Rocket. Ultimate Fighting Championship. Air Force Delta. Grandia 2, which if you ask me is probably by far one of my personal favorite, if not my favorite role-playing game on the console as of recently. Because personally, I just think this is a fantastic game. Very, very solid gameplay, very, very good storyline, and also very top-notch voice acting from none other than Cameron Clark, who does the title character. And as some of us know, he was the voice of Max Sterling in Robotech, one of my favorite shows, and also was Leonardo in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And he was also Kratos in Tales of Symphonia, and also the original dubbed voice actor for Kaneda in Akira. And he does a very fantastic job in this game, and also Jodie Benson lends her voice in this game too. She plays Millennia, and we all know her as Ariel from Disney's The Little Mermaid. But one thing I will say, there is a re-release of this game on the PlayStation 2, which came out like a few years after this one. But from what I've heard, I haven't played it myself, but from what I've heard, there really is no difference between the two. And personally, if you want my opinion, this is probably the better version to have. If you're lucky enough to find it, that is. It's not very easy to come by. I was lucky enough to find it at a pretty reasonable price. Next up is Armada, which if you ask me, I had this as a kid. And this, if you ask me, this is a very underappreciated game. It doesn't get a lot of attention. It did not sell very well. It was an early release for the console. And like I said, I had this as a kid, but I sold it along with the console, and I regret doing so. But thankfully I've got it back, and this is one game that I definitely miss and think needs a second look. And there was going to be a sequel to this, but unfortunately it got canceled. But it's not a very hard find, might I add. And I don't think it's very expensive. I don't think it goes for very much. But if you can find it, I'd say check it out. Next up is Evolution 2, Far Off Promise. Next up is a staple, Sonic Adventure 2. Super Magnetic Neo, another great RPG. Record of Lodos War. If you're a fan of Diablo, you owe it to yourself to check this game out. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Rogue Spear. Next up is Silver, another game that plays quite a bit like Diablo and Baldur's Gate. And as y'all can tell, the case is pretty much damaged. That's how it came at my doorstep. Not sure why that happened, but oh well. And not a bad game. Next up is The Legacy of Kain's Soul Reaver, which is often hailed as the best in the series, if not the pinnacle of the Legacy of Kain franchise. The first time I ever played that was a demo that came with my PlayStation copy of Fighting Force, which those are two different versions of this one game, but personally I think the Sega Dreamcast version is better. I don't think the PlayStation version was badly received, but since this is the copy that I have and that I'm used to, well, I say it's the better version. And a very good game. Next up is Soul Calibur, a cult classic. Next up is Samba De Amigo, which I do not have the maracas to this game. I don't have the full setup, but other than that, it's a pretty good game. Pretty good rhythm-based game. Much like Space Channel 5, but oh well. Next up is Arrow Wings. I don't have the sequel to this one, but I've been on the lookout for it. Next up is Phantasy Star Online version 2. Sword of the Berserk, Guts' Rage. EGG, Elemental Gimmick Gear, which is an underrated RPG for the console. And that you see behind it is a Spanish instruction manual that came with the with my copy of Jet Grind Radio, which I do not want to throw away. I didn't want to throw it away, and I have no plans to. I kept it for some reason. Anyway. A staple, which we all know, we've all owned, and we've all played, Sonic Adventure. Next up is Blue Stinger, which I have not played, and unfortunately this copy that I have, for some reason, does not work on my system, so may need to get another copy, but obviously keep the case. And lastly is Sonic Shuffle. So, that's all my Sega Dreamcast. Anyway, I may move on to other aspects of my collection, but aside from that, that's about all that I have currently, and like I said, I'm still on the lookout for some classics, and still on the lookout for other games, and always open to suggestions, so hope y'all enjoyed. Take care.